I am Ashmina Ranjit, Chipa or printmakers by caste in Newa Nation. My ancestors were from Bhaktapur. Our family profession is printmaking, especially block printing and embroidery. That was prescribed by caste system within the Hindu patriarchy. As a child, I saw my relatives and printing and embroidering. I remember my grand uncle creating an embroidery work of beautiful, beautiful embroidery. I asked if he could make me a dress like that. To my surprise, he asked me to step out. It is not for you or somebody like you, but this is made for the royal families. I was extremely disappointed by that incident, and I never thought about that incident until very recently. I had not reflected on the fact that my ancestors were the producer of such a beautiful work. The handloom, the production of dyes, block printing, embroidery, objects which are the part of national heritage was tied to the caste labor of my ancestor. I'll come back to this later. In 2004, I created one of the most ambitious, large-scale performance titled Happening. I collaborated with 52 radio stations across Nepal to simultaneously play the sound of women wailing in grief and terror. With the sound, I led an hour-long slow walk from the Ghantaghar to Singhadarbar, from city center to the center of the government. In spite of the state of emergency, performance was not stopped. Leaders of 7-party oppositional alliance, politicians, government officials, civilians, students, police, army, the general public became a part of the performance piece. Over 10,000 people stood alongside the road, first out of curiosity, but soon became a part of performance. It was one of the most profounding experience for me. Nepali citizen, the way they responded it. That happening was the collaborative community commentary, reading in favor of peace and democracy on ongoing violence, against the violence. When I started training in a painting and sculpture, I began to take experience of women as my main subject. I began to examine the prohibition, suppression, and exclusion experienced by women in every strata. I was warned by my mentors saying, art, I should not be doing political and gendered work. This pushes me to develop my political stance in reaction to the ethos of self-censorship which was prevalent in the art school environment, which was still reacting to the Panchayat era fear of the state. But my colleague looked at the things from very exclusively aesthetic perspective. If I chose to share my views freely, I was rebuked by mentors, seniors, saying, art transcends politics, art transcends gender. They were not interested in creating the counter narratives to question the status quo. Their goal was to create the kind of art demanded by the elite patrons or to serve the state-sponsored narratives. I confronted them. I pointed out what appears to me to be lack of the political consciousness and refusal to take risk. For taking this stance, I received much backlashes from the seemingly political art fraternity. In my earlier work, I framed the female body as a locus of gender discourse, identity, patriarchy, and socio-political values. These themes later became particularly relevant in the gender discourse and democracy. But I hadn't until recently discovered the transformative possibilities of collaboration and mutual learning. Over the years, I realized patriarchy and capitalism tells us about the lone genius and male geniuses, while dismissing the invisible, visible contribution without whose support the lone genius would not be standing on the pedestal. I also realize the need to deconstruct the myth of lone geniuses and exclusively male geniuses, all the while redefining the notion of art and artist beyond the boosting egos of the elite or functioning as a servant to the state. For that, we needed to build our community of like-minded practitioners with mutual support, cohesion, and solidarity. During the conflict years, 96 to 2006, a Nepali artist community in the capital was quite cut off from the ongoing People's War. As the insurgency reached its high, people were reduced to the statistic, as they were abducted by the army or the Maoist rebels. We were impatiently asking ourselves, what does it mean to be a citizen of this country at this time of the history? How can we intervene? And how do we respond to and resist to this war? In 2002, I, along with other creative people engaged in the civil society, kept our spirit alive by putting together a day-long interdisciplinary art event, Bichalit Bartaman. This event was technically illegal because there was a ban on 4 people gathering in the public space. But hundreds of people participated in it. We could have been jailed for breaking the law. The participation by the people exceeded our expectation and became a ray of hope we had sought. I was similarly inspired by the recent Kathmandu Triennale 2077. I was extremely excited and full of hope to witness the outcome of the movement that we had initiated more than 25 years ago. Kathmandu Triennale was able to dismantle the established colonial, Brahminical, patriarchal concept of the lone genius, while showing the power of feminist, collaborative, creative process of the communities and resistance. But looking at the current political climate, we still see deep-rooted structural violence. We still have a long, long way to go. Recently, I became involved in involved with the Apan Katha Apanai Bunaichi, a program by Samata Foundation under the Just Future initiative. Through it, I have met many young Dalit women friends, exchanging stories and lived experience with them has allowed me to start learning about the caste in a deeper sense while reflecting on my own existence within the Hindu Brahminical patriarchal caste system. I approach their life stories as someone who is thirsty to see the world from the eyes of collaborators, who is eager to feel the hurt recorded by their scars on their bodies and memories. Through this effort, I have started seeing the caste clearly for what it is, a tool for systematic violence. Yet, it is still hard to fully understand it. Now I wonder, when my grandfather's uncle chased me away from the beautiful embroidery work, as a child, who would gone to spend her life in the visual art, was he reacting from the deeply internalized form of caste? Did he accept Ranjit only created object of beauty, but should never consume them? What holds us back, giving ourselves permission to share the aesthetic worth that we create? I began arriving at the tentative answer to these questions, but only at the last few years since I began to engage mindfully and actively with the young Dalit collaborators. As an artist, when I'm collaborating, I like a child. I never know what comes next. What is happening, everything, whatever happening is very hard to predict. It's like going into unknown zone with the excitement. What is not creative? When everything is the same, everything is already known. When assumption shapes outcomes, but artist thrives in uncertainty and mystery. The place is unknown is where artists flourish, we flourish. While collaborating with the young talented women from the Madhesi Dalit and other marginalized communities, I reflected on my positionality. Where do I stand within the caste hierarchy? What does it mean to be a Chipa woman in this graded inequality, dancing between privileged and underprivileged at once? Newa people claim that caste discrimination does not exist in our community. But one can find the strengths in here, even though people have become acclimatized to it and live in denial mode. Working together is more productive, more connecting, more powerful in a way, and also rewarding. Women have always known this, so they have worked together to achieve things. For example, if you are a famous architect or famous musician or a writer or an artist, you are working together with visible, invisible teams. I do not think there is such thing as a lone genius, male geniuses. It is a myth created and perpetuated by the Hindu patriarchy, white supremacists, and capitalist system. It will be more honest and really important to acknowledge other people's contribution. When artists work with someone has different life experience, they see the world from very different perspective. It is very exciting it is all about seeing, hearing, understanding, representing, and also provoking. So if you are with the people and experience things that you have never experienced before, if you get to think about things that you have never thought about before, it gives you a newness. The newness is not only interesting, but also inspiring for an artist to play with. I have so many questions, and I bet others have too. There are no straight answer to these complicated questions yet, but we can find the we can come together to reflect as a collective voice creatively. Yes, collectively we can create the future worth living in a just society. Thank you.